Welcome back to Young Tutor. Today I'll be taking up the topic square roots. Out of the whole topic, squares and square roots. So first I want to let us find a square root of a decimal number. So if a number is a decimal, it's quite confusing or quite hard to figure out the square root of that number. For example, let's take the number 12.25. If we take this number, even though we cannot easily tell that it's a square number or not, so we have to apply a very simple method to do it. First we have to make a kind of a structure like this. It's just a base structure of this whole thing, whole equation. So let's divide this into two halves. That is the ahead of the decimal point and behind the decimal point. These are two halves that we've divided the whole equation into. And now let's take this number. So always start like how we start in division. We always start with the one on the ahead of the decimal from the very left end, and we move over to the right. So we have to do the same thing over here. We'll start with 12. So 12, we know that the closest square to 12, so we have to always take the square number which is the closest square number which is still less than the number we've got, less than or equal to, that is. So if we take 12, then we can the closest square number is 9, whose square root is 3 and 3, so we have to take it as like 3 into 3 as we do in division. Then we have to just subtract what we get, so the square number itself. After subtraction we get 3. We get 3. Then later we have to take down the second portion we have kept and keep it as a whole number itself by putting a point in the square root up here. Next thing we have to do is continue this bar across on the other side and multiply this number by 2 or add it by itself. So we get 6. When we get 6, make sure this is in the tens position and not in the ones position. In this case it's 6. Of course it can come as any other number also. I'll give you another example later. Now if we take it as 6, then in the ones place we have to like keep on trying with trial and error on if 61 times into 1. So whatever number you put here in the ones place must be repeated over here in the square of the number, in the decimal portion of the square, and we should get this answer in the end. If we do not get this answer, that means this number is not a square number. So now let's try to see if we can get a number, get a multiple of 60x, 6x, that is, or 6 and some extra number here, which multiplies with the ones digit to get this number. I know the answer, but you can test it out, check it out yourself. It is 65 into 5, which gives 325. Now we know how this works, and we've also understood how to find a square root of a number. Now let's take a whole number as an example and a whole square number as an example, and we'll find its square root. So let's do this quickly. Let's take the number 144. So if we take the number 144, then let's do the same method as we did earlier, but over here the whole this if we take the number 144 for example, this whole section including 1 will be, the whole portion will be taken up, and therefore we don't need to even write as a bar up here. So now that we know what we have to do here, you can try it on your own. the answer is immediately found as 12 by 12, which will still give 144 as the answer. Now that you can see 12 square is 144, we know that. So therefore, we can see that this method works for any number, including decimal numbers. Now let's see if we can estimate a number to the nearest square root. That is, if we take the square root of a number, it should be the closest number, like a closest number whose square is very close to that number. To simplify the understanding of this, let's take for example that we need to find the estimated value or the estimated or approximate square root of the number 250. So if the number is 250, then we know that this number, the root of this number falls in between 10 and 20. We know it because 10 square is 100 and 20 square is 400. This is the main reason why I asked everyone or whoever is watching to memorize the tables, memorize the square tables, that is, or the squares of numbers from 1 to 25. As when you remember these numbers, it's very easy to remember these calculations. So now we know that this the square root of this number falls in between 10 square and 20 square. 10 and 20. As this number also falls between these two. Now let's try to get more accurate as we can. So we know that it falls between 10 and 20, but that's not the closest value we can get. Let's take 15 and 16. If we take these two numbers, we know the squares. We know that 15 square is 225 and 16 square is 256. Now that we know that this number falls between 15 and 16, now we have to find out the closest approximate to this number, and we know that 250 is the closest to 256. It's closer to 256 than 225. So the root of 250 is approximately 16. So the root of this number 250 is approximately 16. It is not equal to 16, but it's close to 16. Let's take another example for this. Let's take the root of 80. If we take the root of 80, it's first thing to tell you is that it's not a whole number. The root of 80 will be somewhere in the decimals. So how can we find the exact square root of this number? So we know that this number square root falls somewhere between 1 square, which is 1, and 10 square, which is 100. We know that because 100 is bigger than 80, but 1 is still smaller than 80. This is just a close approximation. But this is still nowhere close to what approximate we want. We are looking for a very, very exact or very exact approximate we need for this number. So let's see if we can find a better one. We can also take the approximate to be 5 square and 10 square, because 5 square is 25 and 10 square is, again, we know that is 100. So this number still falls between these two, so we can keep on continuing like this until we find the closest approximate. We can also take this number to be in between 8 square and 9 square, because 8 square is 64 and 9 square is 81. So we can see that 80 is the closest number between these two is 81. For 80, So 80, the root of 80 is approximately 9. We know that because we are taking the square root of the number and not actually squaring this number. We square this number so that we can get to this number without the square root. It's easier to do it with this method than actually just memorizing all the squares and square roots and trying to find out the number in between. Alright, so now let's start up with another topic which we can use to estimate or get the exact number of digits in the square root of a number. So let's take for without any calculation. This can be done without actually doing any calculation or any math, but you can only figure out the digits and not the answer. So let's take the number, for example, 4489. This is a square number, but what we have to do first is to divide the number by in continuous twos. That means we have to just keep on splitting the number by 2 and adding a bar. Now then we can count how many bars are there in the whole number. And we get the number of digits in its square root. In this case, we can see that the number of bars are 2, so there are 2 digits. 2 digits in the square root of this number. We can also check this answer, but the numbers as the numbers are getting huge, it's quite hard to do it. But I know one of these square roots, so I will show it to you later. Now let's take up another example to show you how this would work. Let's take 27225 or 27,225. This number we can only divide in 2 bars, but then there's 1 digit remaining. We have to also put a bar on top of that number and count that as a third digit. So in this case there are 3 digits in the square root, and therefore the total number of digits in a square root will be 3. And we can also check this, so you can check this on your own by using the calculation I showed you on how to find a square root earlier. Now let's take a third example just to simplify this easier, and to show or prove that the square root of this has the equal number of digits. Let's take 390625. To be exact, this number is the square of 625 because of the super complex mechanism of how 5 square and squaring what you get keeps on squaring. The way of that works for 5. In that method we get 625, and 625 square is 390625. Remember that 625 has exactly 3 digits, which means let's start putting the bar, and now we can see that we get exactly 3 bars and no extras, which means we have 3 bars equal to 3 digits. And as we have 3 digits, and we already know that the 390625's square root is equal to 625. And as we know that 625 has exactly 3 digits in it, then we can say that this number is this works, and this method actually works, and it proves that this method does not have any flaws, or there are some numbers which do not work with this method. All the numbers work with this method, but it only shows the digits in the answer and not the actual answer. Now let's start up with the homework session. If you watched till here, thank you for watching. But just before you go, let's see what could be today's homework that you can solve. For today's homework, first I will give you some super easy sums to solve. So you have to find the square root of these numbers using the square root method I've told you. First one is 7.29. Find the square root of this number. It's very easy, so go ahead and try it. Then find the square root of 4225. All these numbers are going to be in decimals. Just remember where the decimal point is located. And the third one for this topic will be 2.56. These all are very simple. Go ahead and try it on your own, and comment the answers down below for all of these homework sums. Then the next one I will be asking you to solve will be the number of digits in this number square root. So the first one I'll be giving you will be 64. For this one you can find the square root also and answer it, no problem. For the second one, take 144. And for the third number, we will take 1764. Okay, so this will be your homework. Also do it without calculations. Only these three you can do without calculations. These will require calculations. Go ahead and try it on your own. These are all super easy, so comment the answers down below. Thank you for watching. Like the video and share the video also to all your friends and family. And if you really like the video and like my channel, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Bye.